Alors, on passe à un établissement qui n'est pas pôle associé de la Bibliothèque nationale et qui n'est pas à Paris, mais qui est à Barcelone. Et en fait, Alícia Daufi vient nous présenter les archives en ligne du Liceu. Alors, pour nous, les grandes archives en ligne historiques des théâtres, c'est celle du Théâtre de la Monnaie qui avait mis en place ce site Carmen, hein, qu'on consulte encore avec profit aujourd'hui. Et puis évidemment, le Métropolitain d'Opéra avec MetArchive, qui est aussi une grande ressource pour les musicologues et les historiens du théâtre. Et on connaît peut-être moins ce qui a été fait par le Liceu. Je passe sous silence, mais vous connaissez tout ce que fait aussi la Bibliothèque nationale et l'Opéra de Paris en termes d'archives numériques pour ce qui concerne la grande maison de la Bastille et du Palais Garnier. Donc, Alícia Daufi, elle est pianiste et elle est aussi historienne, elle est musicologue aussi. Et elle fait en ce moment un doctorat sur les bals masqués en Espagne au 19e jusqu'à la guerre civile, c'est ça? Voilà. Bals masqués qui sont un sujet en ce moment très, très prisé des historiens et des musicologues. Donc vous trouverez des homologues français qui travaillent sur les mêmes sujets, vous verrez. Et là, elle ne nous parle pas des bals masqués. Encore, il y a certainement eu des bals masqués au Liceu, comme il y en a eu à l'Opéra de Paris. Et donc, elle nous parle des archives du Liceu, un exemple d'archives en ligne d'une maison d'opéra. Voilà, c'est à vous.
Merci, bonjour à tous. D'abord, je voudrais remercier le comité scientifique d'avoir accepté ma proposition. C'est un plaisir d'être ici pour parler des archives du Grand Théâtre del Liceu de Barcelone. Par ailleurs, je vais m'excuser de ne pas parler français et de faire la communication en anglais. Merci. So, from the 17th century until the first decades of the 19th century, opera in the city of Barcelona was monopolized by the Teatre de la Santa Creu, located at the end of the La Rambla de Barcelona. The anti-clerical riots in 1835 changed the fate of this theatre, and in 1837, a new rival emerged, the Sociedad Filodramàtica de Montesión. The creation of this new theatre, which was initially located in the refectory of Montesión Convent, was driven by the commander of the National Militia's 14th Battalion, Manuel Gibert, as the performances raised money to help pay for the battalion's uniforms. This new theatrical venue was inaugurated on 21st August 1837. The growth of the theatre and its lack of adequate spaces meant that in 1844 the government gave the Sociedad del Teatro de Montesión a space in which to create a new coliseum with better architectural conditions. The new building was to be erected in an old convent belonging to the Barefoot Trinitarians on the Rambla de Barcelona. Construction was completed in 1847, and the new theatre inaugurated as the Gran Teatre del Liceu on 4th April that same year. It should be noted that this theatre was built as a result of private funding driven by all the members of the Societat of this theatre, of the Gran Teatre del Liceu. So, despite its modest military beginnings, the Liceu was to become one of the most important opera houses in Barcelona and one of the most significant on the Iberian Peninsula. Over the 150 years the Societat del Gran Teatre managed the Liceu, the theatre generated many different kinds of documents which were kept in the Societat del Gran Teatre del Liceu archive next to the Hall of Mirrors of the theatre. Remarkably, the documentation was all saved, remaining intact despite the fire of 1994. Only ash stains on the covers of some of the documents is evidence of the dreadful incident. The collections relate to administration, masked balls, posters, management, technical documents, set design, photographs, librettos, scores, and audience programs. The preservation of this documentation makes the Liceu one of just a few European theatres that have been able to retain their complete documentary series and that can provide an unbroken insight into the opera house's activity over time. This distinguishes the Liceu from other theatres in Spain, as the Barcelona Coliseum consistently produced a program of opera with the intention of being a first-rate theatre. Moreover, not only have the documents in these collections contributed to knowledge of music and opera in Southern Europe, Their existence has also made it possible to study social and economic aspects of 19th and 20th century Barcelona. Studies from the perspective of art history through posters and audience programs and philology through administrative documents should also not be forgotten. Notable interest in the technology has also been sparked by some of the archive documents. Thanks to them, we can see how the architecture of a 19th century theatre functioned, in addition to how specific elements evolved, such as the heating system, lifts, and fire prevention systems, to name a few. The Libro del Conserje is an example of the unique nature of each collection, relating to the management of the theatre. The Libro del Conserje is a set of 25 volumes spanning 1862 to 1981, in which the concierge made notes on the day-to-day life of the theatre. These extremely valuable documents give an insight into what was happening in the theatre on a daily basis. All the opera performances are detailed in this logbook. For example, the Spanish premiere of Umberto Giordano's opera Fedora took place on 22nd April 1900. However, the concierge also notes other issues relating to the maintenance and condition of the theatre. On 1st January 1864, he writes a lot of things, but he said that the lounge carpet doesn't fit well around the entrances to the circle. The circle is the lounge of the Societat del Gran Teatre del Liceu, and the doors to the café. It bunches up and is very inconvenient for people going in and out. And he also adds that the cloakroom is too dark and needs a table with a mirror and more chairs. The documentation relating to masked balls is very varied and comprehensive. The collection contains scores of dance music played during the carnival balls, but also includes posters and balance sheets and accounts for every carnival season. Also preserved are invoices and receipts for the shops and businesses the theatre dealt with. These include the receipts for gas, for work done by the theatre technician, the person in charge of laying the wooden floor so people could dance into the stalls, for the candles used to light the theatre before the advent of electric lighting, for hiring the footmen's attires, and even for the person who hung the posters advertising masked balls around the city. Anyway, from a musicology perspective, the scores and librettos are another important corpus of documentation. In the case of scores, as mentioned, the archive preserves scores of operas, zarzuelas in Spanish, and dance music. The virtual archive holds at present a total of 1,159 records of scores. And in terms of librettos, the archive contains both operas and zarzuelas also. The 2011 agreement between the Societat del Gran Teatre del Liceu and Universitat Autònoma de Barcelona is testament to the documentary importance of this archive. The agreement covers the digitization of more than 50,000 documents, followed by cataloging and storing them in the UAB's Dipòsit Digital de Documents, DDD. We have the website. The DDD is one of the online archives in Catalonia with the greatest international impact. And the research director of this project is Professor Francesc Cortés from the UAB. For the digitization, the Societat del Gran Teatre del Liceu has begun a micro-patronage project with its members who contribute to the sustainability of the project through additional donations, as well as public funding, of course. For its part, the Universitat Autònoma de Barcelona provides the workspace and staff required for the entire process from cataloging through the storage in the DDD. Although the documents are held in the DDD, a website has been created with the aim of raising awareness of the collections in a clearer and more individualized way. Here we have the website. This website has several ways of making searches more useful, faster, and easier. Documents are divided into the different collections described above. Searching by collections is particularly important if you wish to gain an overview of particular aspects. For example, studying technical documentation is very important, but at the same time very specific. It is therefore useful to be able to look at each of the archive documents in a general way in order to understand how technology was used in a theater during the 19th and 20th centuries. In particular, extremely diverse topics can be found in this virtual space, such as documents relating to the electrical installations, the heating system, the lifts, and plans for using the stalls as a dance hall. On the other hand, a glance at the posters quickly shows the types of artistic activity that took place in the Liceu and how the design of these posters changed over the time. Graphic documents from the interwar period are extremely interesting. The Art Deco designs are very different to those seen on posters from the 19th century, being much more restrained and devoid of illustrations. The archive also has 4 types of index that make it easier to search such a large number of documents. Thanks to the document dating carried out during the cataloging process, the website contains a chronology section that links documents to specific years. The Universitat Autònoma de Barcelona's Computer Vision Center helped develop this concept. Searching using the chronology function allows users to easily find out what happened in a given year or period of time. For example, if you wish to find information on the origins of the Liceu, a search for 1847 in the full list of years will bring up a new list of links to each of the relevant documents. From this year, the anthem in honor of the theater's inauguration is of particular interest. Almost 50 years later, for example, one of the important moments in the theater's history took place. On 7th November 1893, anarchist Santiago Salvador threw 2 Orsini bombs from the 5th level to the auditorium into the stalls during the first performance of the season Gioachino Rossini's opera William Tell. Thanks to the chronology section, all the digitized documentation relating to this particular event in the Liceu's history, happened in 1893, can be quickly accessed. It is interesting to see, for example, the documents written by the theater company asking for a subsidy to cover the financial losses it suffered as a result of suspending its activity after the attack. Another way of approaching the documentation in the archive is by using the names index. This section brings together the different names that appear throughout the documents. To facilitate searches, however, the names are grouped into the following categories: architects and engineers, dancers, companies, choreographers, stage directors, conductors, set designers, performers, orchestras, literary authors, singers, composers, choirs, ballet directors, companies and organizations, photographers, and librettists. For example, the category of conductors to date contains a drop-down list of 305 names. For information about musician Franz Beidler, for example, at the Liceu, clicking his name takes you to 2 audience programs that show his involvement as a conductor. In 1909, Franz Beidler conducted one of the 8 concerts given by the Asociació Musical de Barcelona, here in Spanish, Asociación Musical de Barcelona, and other concerts in this cycle were conducted by, as you see, Gabriel Fauré and Pablo Casals in Spanish. Well, but returning to Beidler, a year later, he was back at the theater conducting, with the abounding enthusiasm for Wagner at that time, Der Ring des Nibelungen and Der Fliegende Holländer as part of the Liceu's Wagner Festival. The subject index is another way of searching the archive. It should be said that, as above, this is also pending further phases of digitization, which means the number of items continues to increase. The archive currently has a total of 57 categories to facilitate document searches. This subject index is very useful when searching for different documents with things in common. For example, if you wish to consult deeds held in the archive, it is perhaps much easier to find them through the deeds category than to search for them in the administrative documents collection. The same is true for notarial documents, accounting documents, or those relating to buying and selling property, among others. The subject index also classifies the documentation referring to the 2 fires occurred at the theater. There is one folder for the 1861 fire and another for 1994 fire. For the latter, The archive contains a collection of photographs of the condition of the furnishings after the fire and of the progress of rebuilding. The costume category, for example, is also notable and contains a set of 21 photographs showing costumes worn by several people attending a masked ball in 1897. The virtual archive also includes a section called Works. This contains a list of all the works performed at the theatre. The archive links the associated documents to each of these compositions and could be scores, audience programs, administrative documents, or librettos, among others. The website also adds the Liceu symbol, this L of here, adds the Liceu symbol to works that either premiered at the Gran Teatre del Liceu or whose first performance in Spain took place at the theatre. For example, the world premiere of the opera Gala Placidia by Jaume Païssa, a Catalan composer, took place on 15 January 1913 at the Gran Teatre del Liceu. As regards foreign operas, it is striking that many lost little time in coming to the Barcelona Opera House. Macbeth, which premiered on 14th March 1847, was performed at the Liceu on 1st July 1848, only a year after. Besides this information, the works index is useful as each composition is linked to all documentation preserved in the archive relating to the same title. In the case of the opera Faust by Charles Gounod, which also had its Spanish premiere at the Liceu Theatre, there are many kinds of related documents. Firstly, a total of 50 audience programs provide evidence that this opera was performed in different formats, from the complete work to a few arias in a charity concert for Colombia in 1985 and at different editions of Francesc Viñas' International Singing Competition. The website also links photographs and photographic plates of sets from Faust. And in terms of scores, for example, we have the aria Dio possente, Dio d'amor. On the other hand, the Libro del Conserje also mentions the performances of the opera, specifying that Faust was first performed on 17 February 1864. Finally, it is relevant to note that specific searches can also be performed according to the researcher's interest. Up to now, we have looked at different indexes and collections that organize the documentation. However, researchers can also carry out searches according to the information they have. Searches using this information can be carried out with the fields proper noun, title, keyword, collection, genre, and year. Thanks to the website, searches can be defined much more easily. For example, if we are looking for composer Daniel Aubert, we can select the genre as either opera or dance music. In the case of opera, there are 8 documents, including audience programs, sets, librettos, and scores related to the composer. Of particular note is a photo of a set design for the opera Muet di Portici and its scores, as well as those for Edeu le Secret and Fra Diavolo. In contrast, if we change the genre to dance music, the content changes radically, and the search results in different documents. In the case of dance music, the search brings up 9 scores either written by Aubert himself or inspired by his works. Aubert's polka titled La Circassienne particularly stands out. Other compositions in this list include dance music written by various authors inspired by Daniel Aubert's opera Enfant Prodigue. Composer Émile Ettling wrote a suite of waltzes, Alfred Mujard a quadrille, and Antony Lamotte a polka mazurka. Interest in the archive can be measured via the number of different documents viewed and downloaded. In 2019, more than 93,000 documents were consulted and almost 62,000 downloaded, this being the year with the highest figures. Regarding geographic context, Catalonia has the highest number of views and downloads. After Catalonia comes Spain and the United States, China, Mexico, Italy, Argentina, Germany, Singapore, and France, among others. In the case of France, the area with highest research activity is Île-de-France. Ultimately, the Societat del Gran Teatre del Liceu Historic Archive has been reasserted as one of the most important opera houses archives in Europe, considering its privately run nature and the excellent condition of its documents. Preserving the collections intact has made the Liceu one of the most interesting opera houses from a musicology and humanistic perspective. As regards creating the database, it was inspired by the archives of the La Scala Opera House in Milan and the Royal Opera House in London, although it is important to consider that most large theatres of this kind have created specific models to suit their type of historic archives. For this reason, the unique nature and importance of the Liceu archives calls for the creation of a virtual archive so that a very important part of both Catalonia's and opera's heritage is accessible to everyone, both researchers and the general public. Furthermore, the detailed cataloging process allows documents to be consulted in different categories, such as in the name and subject index, multiple searches to be performed, and documents to be presented in an interconnected way, as seen in the case of the opera Faust. Thank you very much.